Part 45. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 441. Chapter 441 The Woman My Cousin Likes. As soon as Zhang Wenhui put dinner on the table, she saw Zhang Runchinj, who was sitting on the sofa in the living room, got up and walked out after answering a phone call, and quickly stopped him. "You're still going out when we have to eat?" Zhang Runchinj didn't even look back, he just waved his hand and said, "I have something important to discuss with Lao Lu in person. You can eat on your own without waiting for me." Lao Lu, Lao Lu, Lao Lu is the one on our lips every day. Those who don't know may think you are discussing some major national affairs. Before Zhang Wenhui could finish complaining, the door slammed shut. "If no one is home, how can we cook this meal?" Bringing the dishes and chopsticks that had not been put down back to the kitchen, Zhang Wenhui reluctantly ate half a bowl of rice, put the remaining food in the refrigerator, walked to the living room and sat on the sofa. "I wanted to call my daughter to chat, but I was afraid that it would disturb the child's meal at this time. In the end, I just picked up the TV remote control nearby and switched the channel to the national channel. Waiting for the second episode of The Legend of Calligraphy and Painting to be handed down from generation to air. She should watch her daughter and son-in-law on the show." Asterisk. Zhang Lingzi's car parked at the back door of the hotel. Now is the time when Painting and Calligraphy handed down from generation to generation is airing, and this morning when Lu Zhengzheng was scrolling through her phone, she discovered that this program had quietly climbed onto the hot search list this evening. It seems that more people are paying attention to and discussing this show than they thought. To be on the safe side, the back door with less traffic is safer and much quieter than the main door with lots of people coming and going. Shen Chuiao volunteered to come down to pick her up. When she saw the figure who was about to get out of the car after the car door opened, she quickly raised her feet and walked up to meet her. She called out cousin sister-in-law and couldn't have been smoother, "We finally meet." Zhang Lingzi saw her hand reaching out to support her. After a pause, she put it up and gave it a gentle squeeze. After she stood firm, she let go and said, "Chuyu." Hey, Shen Chuiao responded with a smile, quickly looked the person up and down at close range, and looked at the eyes that were looking at her. "I think my cousin is in good condition. My cousin should be able to rest assured now." Even though she had never been in the desert, she knew that the conditions in such a place would not be much better, let alone for a weak actress like her cousin. Filming would definitely be much harder. She had thought before that she would see a beauty who had been tortured by the wind and sand, and would be somewhat tired from the vicissitudes of life. However, the person standing in front of her now did not feel tired at all, but had a tough beauty that was tempered by the wind and sand. It's really hard not to be impressed. Hearing her mention Shen Yunqing, Zhang Lingzi's expression softened. "Did you come to see me with the mission assigned by your cousin?" "Yes, I just came to Liangchuan, and my cousin called me and asked me to go and see you on his behalf." "Is there anything missing? If Sister Yun hadn't said that you would come to watch the show in 2 days, I will go to the desert tomorrow. However, I am also very curious about you." After all, she dared to say that the entire Shen family together would never be able to guess what kind of woman she was before seeing her in person. "I don't need anything. You go back and reassure him." "Yeah, I'll definitely pass it on." When Lu Zhengzheng and Chang Ning got off the car one after another, Huza drove away. "Lu Zhengzheng and Chang Ning, they are both my assistants." "Hello," Shen Chuiao smiled and nodded at the two of them, then turned and led the way. "Sister Yun and Yun Yi are waiting in the private room of the Chinese restaurant on the second floor of the hotel. Let's go have dinner first." "Good." In the box. When Yun Yi wanted to get up for the third time, Yun Chan put down the menu and couldn't help but glance over. "Are there nails on the seat?" "No, I am." Yun Chan said as if unintentionally. Miss Zhang said that she would bring her 2 assistants. As soon as he finished speaking, The brat raised his eyebrows as expected. She then poured another ladle of cold water on them and said, I asked Lian and Li Yan to follow you today. Do you feel there is any sign of memory recovery? Yun Yi's eyebrows suddenly drooped again, he hit his head with some annoyance, shook his head and muttered, no. He now felt physical disgust when he saw those two people, but he had to rely on this to stimulate the retrieval of the lost memory. It felt too painful. I can't even imagine how I could find that Lian as my girlfriend before. I don't think I like that at all. You didn't expect it, so I wouldn't have expected it. Outside the box. Chang Ning paused when he heard the conversation between mother and son. Zhang Lingzi noticed and looked back at her. Ahead, Shen Chuiyu pushed open the door to the box. The mother and son in the box stood up together. Miss Zhang is here, please sit down quickly. Chuiyu and the two girls also sit down. After Yun Chan greeted him, he patted Yun Yi on the shoulder again, why don't you go get some tea? Yun Yi stood up quickly, picked up the teapot on the table, walked to Zhang Lingzi's seat and poured a cup of tea. Miss Zhang, drink tea. Thanks. He then walked to Chang Ning's seat, took the cup and filled it. Chang Ning, drink tea. Chang Ning took the teacup with a cold expression, thank you. Yun Yi, who originally wanted to say more words to her, saw this and stood there for 2 seconds, opened his mouth and didn't know what to say. Seeing that the person in front of him lowered his head and didn't look at her, he could only feel disappointed. Turn around and continue pouring tea for Lu Zhengzheng. Yun Chan sighed when he saw this, and then looked at Zhang Lingzi who was drinking tea with a smile. I only found out yesterday that Miss Zhang is still Chuyu's cousin. Chuyu always calls me Sister Yun. You can also call me that in the future. Yes, I have arranged the room you will stay in tonight next to Chuyu. Zhang Lingzi put down her teacup and looked over. Sister Yun is interested. You can call me Lingzi or Zioxi. Okay, Lingzi. Yun Yi, who had just returned to his seat after pouring the tea and sat down, suddenly noticed something. Everyone here calls him Sister Mom, so doesn't he become the youngest in the hierarchy? Others are fine, but Chang Ning is also a generation older than him, so how can he scream out loud? Then, what should I call you? Yun Chan couldn't help but glance over, feeling that this brat was even more dazed than before after losing his memory. Call auntie. Ft. Cough. Chang Ning couldn't hold back his laughter. Yun Yi saw her smile and breathed a sigh of relief. As long as Chang Ning doesn't give him a cold face, it's not like he can't call auntie this time. At this time, even Shen Chui realized something was wrong. This looks like something is happening. However, that Lian wasn't before. As soon as she thought of this, Shen Chui heard Yun Chan say, Ling 11, the brat Lian you asked me to focus on met. Zhang Lingzi glanced at Chang Ning's ears that quietly perked up, is she still in Liang Chuan? Well, there was also a guy named Li Yan who was with me. One of them was the brat's girlfriend before, and the other was his good buddy after they came out of the desert, they got together. Yun Chan's tone was full of sarcasm, and he exposed his son's shortcomings so completely, I don't even want to admit that this kid is my biological child, and he said that I don't have to worry about anything. What a shame. Yun Yi's head almost drooped under the table, and he retorted in a low voice, Mom, everyone is blind sometimes. Then you are really blind. Chang Ning could not hold back this time, then your memory. Yun Yi quickly raised his head and looked at her, I haven't recovered yet. When I met them, I felt familiar with them and stopped them subconsciously. It was my mother who recognized them after she came. Still can't remember anything. Then they now. I don't know anything about them. They are quite slippery. It's worthy of being together, but I have already confirmed that they are definitely not innocent. I will simply leave them to stimulate this kid and see if they can recover their memories early. That's all they have at the moment. It worked. End of this chapter. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, X. Press 11. Chapter 442. Chapter 442 The Real Source of Stimulation. After dinner, a few people took the elevator upstairs. Yun Chan noticed that Chang Ning was hesitant to speak, so he directly asked, "Does Miss Chang Ning have something to say?" Chang Ning first looked at Zhang Lingzi and saw her nodding towards him, then took a deep breath. "I want to meet that Lian Lian." Yun Chan raised his eyebrows and nodded in agreement without asking why. So everyone went to the top floor. "I have placed the two of them opposite for easy surveillance. Xiaoi and I live here. Lingzi, Chihuo, and Miss Zheng Zheng, please come in." After entering, Yun Yi consciously went to get a drink from the refrigerator in the small kitchen nearby, while Yun Chan turned on the TV in the living room. "By the way," he explained, "I installed surveillance cameras on the opposite side." The TV screen turned on, and she made some simple adjustments. The picture displayed was clearly the scene in the presidential suite opposite. Lian Lian and Li Yan were sitting in front of the coffee table eating the lunch box that the bodyguard who was watching them outside had just brought in. 2 vegetarian dishes and 1 portion of rice looked very bland, so the two of them ate very slowly. At first they did not dare to eat the food that was delivered to them, and they only dared to drink the water from the tap in this room. Later, the water was stopped. They were hungry and thirsty and couldn't bear it anymore, so they started to eat. Yun Chan looked at their suspicions with a cold look, with a face full of sarcasm. "I didn't poison them, so why did they have something to worry about? Eating a meal is like swallowing poison." Soon, Chang Ning's figure appeared under the surveillance. The two people who were eating stopped using their chopsticks and both turned to look over. To be able to come in so arrogantly, it must have been with the tacit approval of Yun Yi's mother. Chang Ning walked to the coffee table and his eyes fell on Lian Lian's face. "That's it?" Even she wanted to complain. What did Yun Yi think of him? Lian Lian felt uncomfortable and moved her lips. "Who are you?" "You don't need to know who I am. I heard that you are Yun Yi's ex-girlfriend." After getting the drinks, Yun Yi heard Chang Ning on TV asking this question. He raised his hands to cover his face. More than anyone else, he now looks forward to the return of his memory as soon as possible so that this feeling of social death can end. Chang Ning flicked his hand and asked, "How do you two know each other?" Lian Lian didn't want to reply, but her words had already betrayed her. "Online." "Online dating?" "Absolutely, we played the same game for almost half a year, and then we became friends. Yun Yi just disappeared, and you turned around and got together with his buddies. Are you so impatient?" A trace of struggle flashed across Lian Lian's face. Li Yan on the side wanted to speak out, but Chang Ning stopped him with a sharp look. "Me?" Chang Ning looked at Lian Lian's hand subconsciously placed on her stomach. When she realized something, she suddenly reached out and grabbed Lian Lian's wrist. Although she didn't learn much medical skills from Wuju, she could still read a simple pulse. "You are pregnant." In the suite next door. Yun Chan sat up straight suddenly. Yun Yi was stunned for a moment. Lu Zhengzheng raised his hand to cover his mouth, and Zhang Lingzi raised her eyebrows. "It's not the Li Yan opposite you, right? So you two have been together for a long time." Chang Ning didn't need Lian Lian's answer. He could get the answer just from the reactions of the two people in front of him. She let go of Lian Lian's wrist, took out a tissue and wiped her hand. "I admire you, you are quite good at playing." As soon as Chang Ning left the house, a doctor came in on Yun Chan's orders and confirmed the fact that Lian Lian was pregnant. And it's been almost 2 months. According to previous research, the adventure team had just started to be formed at that time, and Lian Lian was still Yun Yi's girlfriend. But she was pregnant with Li Yan's child. Yun Chan's face turned completely dark. She really doesn't want this stupid son. Pregnant. Yun Yi suddenly covered his head and stood up after being stunned. He couldn't help but groan in pain. Yun Chan's expression changed when he saw this, and he quickly went over to help him. Changning, who had just returned from the opposite side, helped control Yunyi, who had a headache and couldn't help but hit the wall. Zhang Lingzi looked at Yun Chan, whose face was filled with disgust and worry. Maybe this is the source of stimulation. It's really possible. I didn't know there were so many things happening around this kid. Yun Chan forced a smile. I'll make you laugh. Yun Yi fainted from the pain soon, and Chang Ning and Yun Chan took him to the bedroom. Zhang Lingzi waited for Chang Ning to come out, raised her hand and gestured to her. What is this? Chang Ning's expression paused. Sister Zixi can see that this little trick is a bit like hypnosis, but it's only suitable for people who are mentally fragile. It won't work at all for people like you. I asked you why you wanted to meet that Lian Lian. That was the purpose. Shen Chuiao came over from the sofa next to her and said, let me figure it out now. Yun Yi probably learned about his girlfriend's pregnancy during the desert adventure, and he knew very well that it was not because of his own pregnancy. Then I noticed the secret relationship between my girlfriend and my good friend, and they had a dispute. They are all young people, and they probably ignored it when their tempers got angry. Lian or Lian Lian accidentally injured Yun Yi. She took a sip of water and continued, it probably hit him on the back of the head. The two of them thought they had killed him, so they wanted to destroy the body and eliminate any traces. Lu Zhengzheng couldn't help but interjected when he heard this, but they later contacted the search team. Just go find someone in a big way. They are the closest to Yun Yi in the adventure team. They must show the most worry and urgency so that others will not suspect them. Zhang Lingzi looked back at Yun Chan, who had listened quietly to the whole reasoning process, and coughed lightly. It's getting late, it's time to go back and rest. Yun Chan really wanted to be alone at this moment. Then I won't leave you all alone. Go back and get some rest early. We'll see you at the show tomorrow. Asterisk. In the room arranged by Yun Chan, Lu Zhengzheng and Chang Ning were cleaning up the room when they heard a knock on the door. Zhang Lingzi got up and opened the door. I saw Shen Chuiao standing outside, who had changed into a pair of cartoon pajamas. She smiled and called, cousin-in-law. Zhang Lingzi. She turned sideways. Shen Chuiao immediately rushed in naturally. There seems to be something wrong with the TV in my room. The second episode of The Legend of Calligraphy and Painting will be broadcast today. Can I watch it at your place, cousin? Zhang Lingzi pointed to the remote control placed on the coffee table. Turn it on yourself. Okay. When Zhang Lingzi went back to the bedroom to change into a set of home clothes and came out, she saw three people sitting cross-legged on the sofa, and her voice happened to come from the TV. That sentence, I prefer the original work of Bai Bo Wanxiang. Sister-in-law, come quickly and sit here. Shen Chuiao patted the seat beside her. Zhang Lingzi glanced at herself on the TV screen, walked over and sat down. She heard Shen Chuiao whispering to her, cousin, the way you said this makes me feel like you have really seen the original painting of Blue Waves, but hasn't this painting been lost long ago? Zhang Lingzi turned her head and glanced at her. You and Shen Heshan are really siblings. Even the questions are the same. It's just that this time there is no Jing Huai on the screen to interrupt and force the popularization of science, so she hummed lightly and said, keep watching. Oh. When the program was broadcast and the guests were about to copy, the screen suddenly split into two pieces, and 5 reviewers appeared on the screen. Shen Chuiao looked at the azure color on the screen on the left that could not be ignored, and then at the ink green mountains on the white clothes of her cousin on the right. She was not too familiar with these two sets of clothes. Now put them together, his cousin's little idea, tisk, is so obvious. I really couldn't hold it back, so I made a sound. Zhang Lingzi. She moved to the other side without leaving a trace. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 443. After seeing the blue waves and everything copied by Zhang Lingzi, Shen Shui, who saw this work for the first time, took a breath. Although she did not learn calligraphy and painting from her cousin like her younger brother, she came from the Shen family with a profound background. You can see at a glance how much depth and skill this painting requires. At this moment, everyone else sitting in front of the TV was also silent. Especially those who had previously questioned Zhang Lingzi's lack of qualifications to be on this show. In the first episode, everyone learned to make pens, inks, paper and inkstones, and it was not obvious, but in this episode, it is really about picking up pens. And the all-round high-definition footage clearly tells everyone that there is absolutely no stand-in, and there is no substitute. When Zhang Nashuan, recognized by almost everyone as a master of contemporary calligraphy and painting, commented on Zhang Lingzi's works and said bluntly to the camera, "I am not qualified to comment," he completely shocked everyone. Sister-in-law, Shen Shui clasped her hands together and looked longingly at Zhang Lingzi, who was sitting farther away from her at some point. "Since you declined Mr. Zhang's invitation to include the words in the museum, then this painting." She really wanted to see it with her own eyes, not through a screen. Zhang Lingzi shook her head at her. "The painting is not in my hands." "Ah. I gave it away the same day I finished the painting." Shen Shui. Turning her head, she saw Su Qingmei's cousin on the TV unceremoniously rebutting Su Qingmei's defense of her cousin-in-law. An idea flashed in her mind, and she thought of a possibility. "My cousin. Shen Shui rubbed her hands. "Started to think about the possibility of borrowing the painting from my cousin." In fact, this painting gave her a lot of inspiration in this moment. Asterisk. The Qian family. The Qian brothers and sister and Qian Yaya were also sitting in front of the TV. Qian Yucheng suddenly reached out and patted his thigh. Qian Yishan, who was sitting next to her, couldn't help but hiss lightly. "What's wrong, second brother?" "What you photographed was my thigh," Qian Yishan reminded her in a dumbfounded voice. "You're just watching a show, why are you so excited?" "I couldn't hold it back for a while." Qian Yishan laughed and continued to read. "Don't I like to study Yuan Zhao's body? In fact, it was influenced by my mentor at the beginning. Before he retired, he studied at the same time as Emperor Yuan Zhao. Kishan painter Siem Weun's paintings were almost astonishing to study. It was at that time that I helped him look up a lot of information about the Yuan Zhao period. After coming into contact with the Yuan Zhao style, I fell in love with this painting copied by Ms. Zhang. Blue Waves. When I first saw it, I felt it was the one closest to Siem Weun's original work." "Your mentor, Mr. Yuan Hui? Can it be closer than the one on the wall?" Qian Yuchen nodded first and then shook his head. "It's not the same feeling. Compared with Zhang Lingzi's painting, the copying works I have seen, although the painting skills and colors are not picky, they are always a bit petty and not as grand as this one." "Yes. Not Yaya?" Qian Yaya nodded. She watched Sister Zixi complete Blue Waves with her own eyes, and her feelings at that time were still fresh in her memory. "No, I have to call the teacher and tell him," Qian Yishan said and stood up. Just as Qian Yishan was about to remind her, he saw her sitting back again. No, the teacher has probably taken a break at this point. I'd better try again tomorrow." As soon as she finished speaking, her mobile phone on the coffee table rang first. Qian Yishan brought it to her and glanced at the screen of his phone inadvertently. "Well, you, the old man who made the note, must be Mr. Yuan Hui, right?" "Chance Qian Yihan, ahem, this is more cordial. No more talking, I'm going to answer the phone." As soon as the phone was connected on the balcony, and before Qian Yishan could even say hello, she heard her teacher on the other side of the phone, who was not a few years younger than Mr. Zhang, asked with a bit of urgency, "Xiao Qian, that legend of the world, the little girl named Qian Yaya in Heritage is your niece. Are you always watching this show too? Qian Yuchen couldn't help but be surprised. Her teacher was an antique, and she couldn't even imagine him wearing reading glasses and sitting in front of the TV watching a program. I went to the Painting and Calligraphy Association 2 days ago, and Lao Li told me that there is a rare program about traditional calligraphy and painting, and she was invited to comment on it, so I wanted to take the time to take a look first. Tell me if that girl is your niece. Yes, before you retired, I took her to the studio once. I have been retired for several years, and your niece has grown so big in the blink of an eye. How dare I recognize her, Yuan Hui said and coughed lightly. Xiao Qian, I saw your niece and that one on the show, the girl named Zhang Lingzi, is quite familiar. Can you introduce me to the teacher? I want to meet that girl. That painting Blue Waves and everything. Yes, I suspect that Miss Zhang has seen the original work of Blue Waves and everything that is said to have been lost long ago. Although Qian Yishan had already made a guess in his mind when he saw the teacher calling at this time. But when I heard what he said, I couldn't help but cover my chest. Even the teacher who studied the divine painter Siem Weun was so suspicious. Teacher, actually I have also met Miss Zhang, and I have her contact information and the signature she gave me. After a pause, he emphasized again, it's from Yuan Zhao style. Oh, that's even better. But, teacher, I'm afraid you won't be able to see anyone in the near future. Miss Zhang is an actress by profession. She is currently filming in the Northwest. I don't know when she will come back. Actor? Filming, Yuan Hui couldn't help but raise his voice. After a moment of silence, he couldn't help but muttered, the program team has invited Lao Li to be the commentator, why didn't they think of inviting me? Since the teacher couldn't see him, Qian Yishan rolled his eyes at the ceiling. I retorted silently in my heart, with your style of only looking at and saying a few words unless there is someone or something you are interested in, it would be crazy for the program team to invite you there. That's all, let's wait until Miss Zhang comes back from filming. Okay, teacher, I will report to you as soon as I have any news about Miss Zhang. Good disciple, it's getting late, go to bed early. Qian Yuchen was stunned when he was called good disciple. When he heard the busy signal after hanging up, he couldn't help but chuckle, this old man. Asterisk. After watching several behind-the-scenes Easter eggs that were broadcast after the second episode of The Legend, Zhang Wenhui turned off the TV with some reluctance. After looking at the time, he turned to look in the direction of the entrance. It's so late, why aren't you back yet? As she spoke, she was about to dial her husband's phone number. Finally, I found the contact person, and just as I was about to press the dial button, the door was pushed open from outside. She quickly stood up and went to meet him, and saw her husband walking in from outside with his head covered. When the light in the entrance hall was turned on, the blood on his fingers was particularly dazzling. Zhang Runchinj met his wife's wide-open eyes in panic, and tilted his head in a somewhat embarrassed manner, go and get the medicine kit. End of this chapter. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 444. Sister-in-law, I'm leaving. Good night, sweet dreams. Tai Tai. Zhang Lingzi did not hide, and allowed the girl in front of her to come over and hug her, and then left with satisfaction. Lu Zhengzhen watched in amazement. She didn't know that Shen Shuiao was the founder of Shanyu's Haihang before, but Shen Shuiao said it casually when they were watching TV together. It was also explained by the way why she could come to the show and why she had such a close relationship with Yun Chan. They are all leaders in the same field. However, the dignified founder of Shanyu's Haihang actually knows how to wear cartoon pajamas and wear stickers in private. The contrast is so great that no one would believe him if he told him. She was lucky enough to see it. Sister Zixi, Miss Shen, she. SHH, Chang Ning raised his hand to his lips and made a silence gesture, and handed the mobile phone that had just been charged in the bedroom to Zhang Lingzi. Sister Zixi, this is Sir's video call. When Zhang Lingzi took the phone, the two looked at each other and walked away in tacit agreement. Chu, you just left my room, and I was about to call you. Huh. Zhang Lingzi was halfway through the conversation when she noticed something was wrong about the background of the person opposite. Why are you in the hospital? Just as Shen Yunqing was about to speak, Zhang Lingzi heard a few more familiar voices. I said you don't need to come to the hospital for this minor injury. If you have to come, trouble. You can still be tough when you call a cut on your head a minor injury. You're still fighting with someone even though you're a lot older, so it's not embarrassing for the juniors to see you. Dad, Mom, brother-in-law has called my sister. Zhang Lingzi blinked and saw three more faces peeking out from behind Shen Yunqing. In the middle is Zhang Runqing, who has a white gauze wrapped around his head. On the left is Zhang Wenhui, whose eyes are red and looks like she has cried a lot. On the right is Zhang Lingxiu, who has a head of fried hair and has helplessness written all over his face. Zhang Lingzi, can you tell me what happened? Zhang Runqing immediately raised his head and looked at the sky. Zhang Wenhui patted his arm and sniffed. Zixi, don't worry, the doctor just said that your dad just has a broken skin, he can just go back and recover in 2 days. Zhang Lingzi looked at Zhang Runqing, who was a little embarrassed but still in good spirits, and nodded. It does not look like the injury is serious. How did you get hurt? It must have something to do with that Lu Chenjian. Your dad just answered his call and went out without even eating dinner. He didn't come back until I finished watching the show you recorded, and that's it, Zhang Wenhui said through gritted teeth. Your dad is just a tough talker and refuses to say who hit him. Zhang Runqing moved his mouth, looked at his daughter with glaring eyes on the phone screen, and tilted his head. Xiao 11, just film your scene properly. Dad can handle this matter, so you don't need to be distracted. It's really tough to talk. Zhang Lingzi and Shen Yunqing looked at each other. Shen Yunqing stood up immediately. I'll go outside and have a few words with Zixi. Zhang Wenhui nodded quickly, then go quickly. It's a coincidence that I sent something here so late, and this happened. When Shen Yunqing left the ward and walked to the emergency exit of the corridor, Zhang Lingzi raised her eyebrows at him. What a coincidence. Zhang Runqing was injured, and you happened to go to deliver something. No, Shen Yunqing shook his head helplessly. He knew that he couldn't hide it from this person. I rushed over after knowing that he was injured. It was also my mistake. Tell me, what's going on? I was involved in Zhang Anfeng's inflating the price of artworks, and now many problems have emerged. In addition, he seems to have some troublesome personal matters over there. For a while, Lu Chenjian and others were ignored. Sensing that something was wrong, I got tangled up and asked for an explanation. My father-in-law was treated as a this time, and his head was smashed with a cup in the chaos. Zhang Lingzi, she didn't know what to say for a moment. No wonder the reason for Zhang Runqing's injury was hidden even from Zhang Wenhui. She probably had no shame in saying that she was being used first and then was injured. After what happened this time, I should be able to calm down and feel more at ease. Shen Yunqing was also a little speechless about this, but it was difficult to show it. He only said tactfully, as long as you don't go too far and think about getting rich overnight, my father-in-law is still capable. Also don't trust others. That Lu Chenjian, I will teach him a lesson. It's okay, teach him to behave well, and don't just hold a sheep in his hands. In addition, I plan to inform Zhang Nashuan about what Zhang Anfeng did in these 2 days. In 2 days, the 3rd episode of Heritage of Calligraphy and Painting will be broadcast, and what happened between Lin Yo and Chen Ju will also be announced. Come out. The two are just superimposed, and the long-term pain is not as good as the short-term pain. Zhang Lingzi followed his words and tried to think about it. Zhang Nashuan hated Chen Jui's actions deeply, but it was his brother Chen Rui who supported Chen Jui's career. If it hadn't been for the accident that happened at Chenqi Club before, Zhang Anfeng might have gotten involved with the Chen brothers by now. If Zhang Nashuan knew that his son actually wanted to cooperate with the scum he hated in the calligraphy and painting world, with the temper of this old man, he would probably be so angry that one Buddha was born and two Buddhas ascended to heaven. But who makes children and grandchildren debts? The old man will teach her a lesson when the time comes, so there is no need for her people to suffer. Shen Yunqing was busy with so many things every day, and she still felt distressed. While I'm talking, prepare another bottle of Suxiaojuxin pills, just in case. Shen Yunqing couldn't help but curled her lips. Okay. Zhang Nashuan, who still doesn't know that he is about to face a serious blow, are you polite? Is there anything unusual about Su Qingmei? That Kong Gaian's methods are indeed quite powerful. Ever since he entered Su Qingmei's villa this evening, my people have been unable to get within 500 meters of the villa. During the day, several doctors came in, including both Chinese and Western medicine. Changyan is not comparable to Su Qingmei and Luan Feng, and there is also Luan Hua. If you can't beat him, just avoid him. It seems that Su Qingmei was seriously injured this time. Even if Kong Gaian cures her this time, when she recovers, I will still have a big gift waiting for her. Let's see if she can bear it this time. The two looked at each other across the screen for a moment and smiled in unison. There is a feeling of going back to the past, but I can also clearly feel that some places are indeed different. Zhang Lingzi looked at the person on the screen and suddenly let out a sigh. Why do I feel like you're a little thinner? Shen Yunqing subconsciously reached out and touched his face. Is there any? Eat more and be obedient. Good. It wasn't until she heard someone walking this way that Zhang Lingzi said good night and hung up the phone. Shen Yunqing went back to the ward and drove his father-in-law and his family home before turning back to Z1. Xiaoji dozed off and finally waited until someone came back. Sir, you are back, are you ready to rest now? There's no rush, let's have some midnight snack first. Xiaoji's eyes widened immediately. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 445. Chapter 445 Overdraft of Life, the Emperor has Zhang Lingzi. Su Qingmei and Luan Feng came out of the basement of the villa one after the other with respectful expressions on their faces. If Jing Huai were here, he would be surprised to find that Su Qingmei, who was stabbed by him yesterday, leaving a nearly 10-centimeter deep wound on her chest, now has a rosy complexion, and the wound on her chest has completely disappeared. The skin is smooth and clean as before. After returning to the ground, she challenged Luan Feng. You see, my lord still pays more attention to me. I was injured, and my lord came all the way back to save me. But you were injured right next to your lord, he was also driven back to the imperial capital to recuperate. Seeing Luan Feng lowering his eyes and saying nothing, as if he was completely shocked, Su Qingmei's face became a little more proud. It doesn't matter if you are stronger than me. If you dare to hurt me in the future, I can't forgive you. Get out of the way. I'm going back to my room to rest. Luan Feng really didn't say a word, turned sideways, and made way to the bedroom. Looking at Su Qingmei disappearing from his sight, he laughed sarcastically. Idiot. How could such a severe backlash be resolved so quickly? Even Mei Shuiqing, who is no weaker than him in ability, needs to retreat to heal after being backlashed, and she still hasn't been able to get out of the retreat. Even he knew it was abnormal for an ordinary person like Su Qingmei, who could not even touch a warlock, to recover so quickly. Based on his understanding of this time, it is likely that he directly overdrawn Su Qingmei's vitality to offset the previous backlash, which is why the effect is so good and obvious. But I was still feeling proud in front of him. To call him a fool would be flattering. In the basement. As soon as Su Qingmei and Luan Feng left, Luan Hua, who was still beside Chong Yin, knelt down on one knee. Sir, Luan Feng made a mistake because I, the older sister, taught me improperly, please punish me. If Luan Feng and Su Qingmei hadn't had a conflict, how could that ordinary person named Jing Huai hurt Su Qingmei under Luan Feng's nose? He also came up with a bad idea to let Su Qingmei control Jing Huai while he was still seriously injured, which directly alarmed the adults. She didn't expect her arrogant brother to get along with Su Qingmei, but they could always get along well with each other. This time, she almost strangled Su Qingmei to death. Someone is causing trouble this time. A determined voice came from above her head, and Luan Hua suddenly raised his head. You mean that someone was deliberately intensifying the conflict between Luan Feng and Su Qingmei during this period, which led to such a violent conflict between them this time? Kong Guyan knocked on the table at hand, tilted his head slightly, and looked in the direction of Liang Chuan. We are so far apart, so many things can happen. Ha! An unknown chuckle made Luan Hua suddenly think. An idea flashed in his mind. Zhang Lingzi, is it her? Kong Guyan didn't nod or shake his head. He didn't need to explain to Luan Hua. He just said lightly, we will set off back to Liang Chuan the day after tomorrow. Luan Hua was stunned. She thought she would leave tomorrow. What about tomorrow? Rest. Luan Hua immediately understood, it's really hard to heal Su Qingmei when you come back. I hope you have a good rest. Kong Guyan waved his hand and said, go out. Villa living room. Luan Feng heard the footsteps that belonged to her sister and hurriedly turned off the tablet in her hand. But before I had time to press the lock screen button, the tablet was snatched away by a hand that suddenly reached over. Luan Hua looked at the people on the screen and asked, are you watching Zhang Lingzi's show? Don't you often say that knowing yourself and your enemy will never lead you to defeat? The most serious injury I've suffered since I started is due to her. Now that I can't see her, I can only do the next best thing and watch her programs. Maybe I can find her. Show some of her weaknesses. Luan Hua nodded upon hearing this, and before Luan Feng showed a smile of recognition, she slapped him on the back of the head. Then do you know that when the conflict between you and Su Qingmei escalated to the point of fighting, it was Zhang Lingzi who was the one pushing it? How is it possible? Luan Feng subconsciously didn't believe it. If she and the adults were not filming in Liang Chuan, how could she reach out to the imperial capital? Daidu has her people, and they are very capable. This was the conclusion Luan Hua had just come to. You and Su Qingmei are just two clowns in Zhang Lingzi's eyes. Luan Feng suddenly looked unhappy. Seeing him like this, Luan Hua wanted to slap him again, but finally held back. Even adults are paying more and more attention to Zhang Lingzi, but you think highly of yourself. In the end, you didn't even notice that something was wrong when you were led by the nose. Why do I have such a stupid brother like you? As she spoke, she glanced in the direction of Su Qingmei's bedroom and lowered her voice. You have seen what my lord did to Su Qingmei this time. On the surface, he was still friendly to Su Qingmei, but privately he was very dissatisfied with her. It is estimated that there will be another time, Su Qingmei will be completely given up. But you are different. The Lord is still willing to punish you, which means that he still has expectations for you. You should also make progress and be more careful, brother, otherwise I, as a sister, will not be able to help you. Think about Su Qingmei's fate in the future. Luan Feng finally shuddered. Sister, what can I do to regain your respect? You are in the imperial capital now. Then try to find the person who worked for Zhang Lingzi, the person who instigated Su Qingmei and you. But I'm afraid your brain can't deal with that person, and it's easy to alert the snake, so use what you found. Leaving it to adults can always restore some of your weight in their hearts. Luan Feng knew that in this world, only his sister was the least likely to harm him, so he nodded heavily and said, okay, I will listen to my sister. Luan Hua did have good intentions and tried his best to plan for his younger brother. The only thing I didn't expect was that some people were not to be discovered. Asterisk. Shen Yunqing does not usually have the habit of eating late-night snacks. Xiaoji was surprised and quickly cooked a small pot of wontons with plain fillings. I accidentally overcooked it. There was nothing he could do, so he served a bowl to himself who was not yet hungry. Two people sat at the dining table and started eating slowly. Shen Yunqing swallowed the last of his wontons and looked at Xiaoji, who was about to put down his chopsticks. He suddenly asked, "Xiaoji, do you think I've lost weight?" Summer solstice. This time the chopsticks in his hand fell off the table. After a few seconds of silence, he silently stood up and left, and came back after a while with a body fat scale in his hand. "How about you call me by this?" Just when Shen Yunqing asked Xiaoji to bring back a notebook and pen to record his daily weight changes, he was about to go on the scale. The phone placed on the dining table suddenly lit up. Xiaoji quickly picked it up and handed it over. Shen Yunqing took it and saw a message quickly appear on the originally locked screen. His wife Lin Yi found out that Zhang Anfeng had adopted a mistress and had an illegitimate child. Shen Yunqing. Looks like I need to prepare an extra bottle of the quick-acting Juxin pill. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 446. Early in the morning, Zhang Lingzi received a message from Yun Chan, inviting her to have breakfast in the presidential suite above. He also reminded her that she didn't need to put on makeup to choose clothes to wear for the show, saying that the stylist and clothes were already prepared. Zhang Lingzi was happy that she didn't have to do anything by herself. After a simple wash, she took Lu Zhengzheng and Chang Ning out. Just in time to meet Shen Shuiyu, who was about to knock on the door. There was another person next to Shen Shuiyu. She had long hair and a beautiful appearance. At first glance, she looked like a girl, but Zhang Lingzi could tell at a glance that she was a man. The next second, Shen Shuiyu introduced, "Sister-in-law, this is Yurube, who is now the chief designer of Shanyu's Haiheng, so I brought him here to learn more." When Yurube heard his boss call Zhang Lingzi, his pupils shrank in shock. He recovered and greeted politely, "Teacher Zhang, I have long admired you." Zhang Lingzi didn't miss the surprise in his eyes just now, and nodded slightly and said hello. The five of them took the elevator to the top floor together, and were led into the presidential suite by the butler who was waiting outside the elevator. Yun Chan was already sitting on the sofa in the living room, and there were several subordinates in front of him who were listening carefully to the arrangements for the big show. Seeing Zhang Lingzi and others coming in, she raised her chin and pointed at the restaurant, meaning to go directly to the restaurant to wait for her. Zhang Lingzi nodded and led everyone into the restaurant first. After sitting down for a while, Yun Chan hurried in. "Sorry to keep you waiting." Shen Shuiyu waved her hands quickly. "Sister Yun is the organizer of the big show. The show is about to start today. She must be very busy." "I understand." Yun Chan smiled and said, "Eat first, I'm really hungry after a busy morning." Zhang Lingzi glanced at the door of the restaurant. No one came in. "Where is Yun Yi?" "He's not awake yet." Yun Chan frowned. "I asked the doctor, and she suggested that it's best not to wake him up. Forget it, let's eat first so that he won't be hungry when he wakes up. When he wakes up, maybe his memory will be restored." "I hope so." After dinner, I came out of the dining room and saw several more people in the huge living room, as well as 2 rows of clothes hung on movable metal hangers. Zhang Lingzi looked over at the extra people and clothes, and finally landed on the person who had just stood up from the sofa, Yunping. Yunping smiled and nodded. "I am in charge of the makeup for this big show. I heard that you are coming, so I came here to say hello." It just so happens that I will be in charge of the makeup for the show you are watching today. That would be troublesome. She has already experienced Yun Ping's craftsmanship before on the set of Empress Yuan Zhao. 4 words are enough to describe it: blameless. Time was a bit tight, and soon Zhang Lingzi sat in front of the makeup mirror temporarily arranged in the living room. Next to her is Shen Chuiao, and the person in charge of Shen Chuiao's makeup is Yu Rubei. I didn't expect it, but my son Yu is an all-rounder. He can handle makeup and design at his fingertips. Yu Rubei blushed immediately after being praised. Boss, please stop praising me in front of Teacher Yun. How dare I say that I can do it easily? It took nearly an hour to put on makeup and hair. When it was time to choose clothes, Yunping was hurriedly called away by a phone call. There was an accident backstage at the show. Zhang Lingzi nodded to express her understanding. For such a big show, all the people involved must be hundreds or even thousands. It is normal for some accidents to happen. Let's deal with it quickly. Yunping hurriedly left with his assistant. Shen Chuiao called Yu Rubei back, who was about to pick out some clothes for her. I happen to have someone else to use. Yu, help my cousin's sister-in-law pick out something too. Yu Rubei took a look at Zhang Lingzi's makeup, but didn't dare to look at it more, and nodded in agreement. Zhang Lingzi originally wanted to pick something by herself, but seeing someone else doing it for her, she continued to sit. At first glance, there were dozens of clothes on the 2 hangers. After Yu Rubei looked at them carefully, he took down 2 sets of clothes. A light blue fishtail skirt was handed to Shen Chuiao. Boss, try this one. Another piece of moon white tube top jumpsuit only has bluegrass embroidery winding up on the side waist. I chose this one for Teacher Zhang. Zhang Lingzi looked at the clothes handed to her and picked them out. He thanked her with his eyebrows and took it. Lu Zhengzhen looked on at the side and hesitated to speak. When Zhang Lingzi and Shen Chuiao went to the spare bedroom next to them to change clothes, she followed as an assistant and then asked in a low voice, Sister Zixi, is this dress a little too revealing? The tube top style in the front is fine, but at the back of this dress, there are only a few thin silver chains and ribbons tied around it. If it were Sister Zixi from before, she would not say such a thing. But now Sister Zixi, she always feels that she doesn't like this kind of clothes that are beautiful but too revealing. Shen Chuiao saw Zhang Lingzi holding the clothes and looking at them carefully. Sister-in-law, don't look at Yu who blushes easily when he praises her. In fact, his design style is very bold. Anyway, the contrast is quite big. This dress is indeed a bit revealing. But I think it's very suitable for my cousin-in-law. She should show off her good figure. But the place to watch the show today is outdoors. Zhang Lingzi thought about the clothes she had glanced at before and told Lu Zhengzhen, go and get the yellow long-sleeved shawl at the end of the hanger. Lu Zhengzhen quickly brought back the yellow shawl. Zhang Lingzi put on the jumpsuit that Yu Rubei chose, and then put the shawl on her body. Shen Chuiao watched from the side as that smooth and beautiful back disappeared under the cover of clothes. She opened her mouth to say something, and saw Zhang Lingzi turning around and looking towards her. For a moment, she swallowed what she was about to say. Before I put on this yellow shawl, the person in front of me was an elegant. But after wearing this shawl, not only did it not destroy the overall beauty, but it became more graceful and noble. Clothes and makeup are just a bonus, what's more important is the person himself. The person in front of me undoubtedly perfectly interpreted the sentence. Get out. Zhang Lingzi was first and opened the door just in time to see Yun Chan, who had just come out of the bedroom opposite. Yun Chan raised his eyes and saw Zhang Lingzi, who had put on makeup and clothes, and a flash of surprise flashed in his eyes. You actually matched these 2 clothes together. She had prepared that dress, and she didn't even expect that the 2 pieces of clothing could be worn together. But I have to say, it is very bold and brilliant. Zhang Lingzi, it's cold outside. Yun Chan, there's really no way to refute this. Liang Chuan is far north, and the temperature is already several degrees colder than that of the imperial capital. In addition, because this show is relatively large, it is arranged outdoors. Even if there is sunshine, it will still be cold if you wear thin clothes. Shenchuio touched her exposed arm. Would he like to follow the example of his cousin and add one to the outside? Is this selected by Yunping? Even though he asked this, Yun Chan didn't feel like it, so he asked one more question. There was a little accident at the show, and Yunping went over to handle it. The one inside was chosen by Yurube, and the one outside was chosen by myself. Sure enough, Yun Chan couldn't help but smile. If it weren't for the fact that you are an actor and want to film, I would have wanted to hook you up. She and Yunping are sisters. Although the two sisters are busy and rarely see each other, they communicate a lot and often hear Yunping complain. Even though all the celebrities in the entertainment industry are glamorous in front of others, most of them have no taste at all. They hire stylists with high salaries to help them take care of themselves from head to toe every day. Good taste is rare. But now, just by looking at this yellow shawl, which most people may not choose, it can be seen that Zhang Lingzi's vision is unique, not to mention in the entertainment industry, even in the fashion industry. It is rare to find such an outfit that ordinary people cannot suppress. When worn on Zhang Lingzi, it brings out her unique aura even more. Elegant and noble, I am the only one who is honored. If you only wear the inner piece, although it looks good, it will make people feel that it is not worthy of the person's temperament. Simply put, clothes cannot hold a person down. She really appreciates her talents. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 447. Chapter 447, Show off your skills, Mr. Carlo. Yurube was also stunned after seeing the yellow shawl on Zhang Lingzi. The clothes on the hangers were all prepared by Yun Chan. If Yun Chan can choose them, each piece can be called a fine product. But there was only that yellow shawl, which he immediately discarded when he was helping his boss and Zhang Lingzi choose clothes. I even felt that that piece of clothing shouldn't be here. It should have been accidentally put in by someone under Yun Chan. Until now, I watched Zhang Lingzi put on this dress. It is obviously a somewhat grayish but not conspicuous pale yellow, but the person in front of me is stunned to see that the world is vast and I am alone. It was obviously so inconspicuous when it was placed on the hanger, but now it is worn by the person in front of me, but it is so amazing. He never thought that the white moon and the pale yellow could have such a stunning combination. Less than. Yurube finally recovered from his daze and looked at his boss. Boss. Shenchuio naturally noticed that he was in a daze after seeing Zhang Lingzi, so she walked over to comfort him and patted his shoulder. Don't be discouraged. With my cousin-in-law's temperament, if ordinary people dress like her, it would be really hard for me. Me too. What I just discovered is that it's not that you have bad vision. Yurube, How to put it this way, it's still a bit worrying. After all, the other party is still a star, but he specializes in this industry. Someone's casual approach is worth several years of study. Don't worry, boss, I will continue to work hard. Shenchuio raised her eyebrows, but she didn't expect that she would use this to inspire others. Well, today's show was great, but there is still a lot to learn. Everything is packed, then let's go. Leaving someone to watch Yun Yi, who was still awake, Yun Chan took Zhang Lingzi and others to the car from the hotel's underground parking lot and went straight to the outdoor show arranged on the edge of the desert. Getting off the car at the place and sending Zhang Lingzi and Shenchuio to the show, Yun Chan left in a hurry. She had to meet a lot of old acquaintances in the fashion industry who were invited by her, and she had to go backstage to check on everyone's progress. As the host of this big show, she has been the busiest person ever since she entered the show. Lu Zhengzheng and Chang Ning were sitting in the seats assigned to the assistant, but Yun Chan greeted them privately. Although their positions were a little further back, They had an excellent view and were not far from Zhang Lingzi. Changning is lucky, she is not very familiar with famous people in the entertainment or fashion circles. Lu Zhengzheng, who was sitting next to her, hissed from time to time after entering the show, and she didn't stop until now. Looking at the men, women, and children in the field of vision who were also wearing exquisite makeup and costumes, he said, "Don't tell me that you know all these people." "Probably, who made me a 5G surfer? Although I have never met most of the people here in person, I have seen a lot of their photos on the internet. Now, I finally experience this big show. The specifications are so high." Although she is suspected of exposing her own shortcomings, she has to admit that her sister Zixi is really the one with the lowest status among the VIPs. Thinking of this, she couldn't help but look at the back of the figure sitting in the first row. Although she has the lowest status, her sister Zixi was personally invited by Yun Chan. Moreover, looking at sister Zixi's appearance, she doesn't feel uncomfortable at all. As expected of someone who has played the role of Empress Yuan Zhao, Lu Zhengzheng was silently proud. Shen Chuiao just went to meet a few colleagues whom she knew and was relatively familiar with. Although she is young, she is a real rising star and has a good relationship with Yun Chan. Naturally, her peers welcome her with smiles. And on this occasion, even if there are those who are jealous of Shen Chuiao's Shanyu's Haiheng's development momentum, they still have to give Yun Chan some face. On the surface, everyone is affectionate and talking about nice things. Until someone asked, "Why didn't Mr. Shen sit with us instead of sitting next to someone from the entertainment industry?" If I read correctly, the person sitting next to you just now was Zhang Lingzi, right? I really didn't expect that with Zhang Lingzi's you can actually get an invitation to this big show. Shen Chuiao's originally warm expression had a hint of chill, and she looked sideways at the person who just spoke. That's because he has the ability, and sitting next to Zhang Lingzi in the hall is my own request. Why does Mr. He have any objections? That's not what I meant. Shen Chuiao saw the face of the person who was called Mr. He changed, and quickly waved his hands to make amends for himself. I'm just a little surprised. Everyone, I'm going back first and we'll talk another day. Since she had the time to talk tactfully with such people, she might as well go back and talk to her cousin-in-law. Watching Shen Chuiao leave, Mr. He couldn't help but snorted coldly. If it weren't for the support of the Shen family, Shen Chuiao would have developed so fast. That Zhang Lingzi can climb up to her, she is quite capable. In one sentence, it was concluded that Zhang Lingzi had the opportunity to watch the show because of Shen Chuiao's help. The others looked at each other, and two of them opened their mouths, but didn't say anything. He Jing, the clothing brand she founded, has been severely suppressed by Shen Chuiao in the past few years, so it is normal to feel jealous in her heart. However, if that Zhang Lingzi really borrowed Shen Chuiao's help to get the invitation, it should have been an ordinary VIP seat, not sitting in the best row alongside Shen Chuiao. Although I don't know what Zhang Lingzi relies on, it is unlikely to be because of Shen Chuiao. He Jing is just expressing her anger, right? Except for Shen Chuiao, there is no one sitting around Zhang Lingzi. After all, it is the best position, and the fame and status that can be assigned to it are extraordinary. Basically, they all arrive late, and some of them have a good relationship with Yun Chan. They will talk to Yun Chan at this time, and will not come and sit down until the show officially starts. Zhang Lingzi is not bored either. Zhang Lingzi's status before was lower than that of her now, and naturally she had no experience of watching live shows. This is the first time. Just the unique layout of the show was enough for her to admire it calmly for a while. In the eyes of others, this gesture shows that the little girl looks very calm despite her age. As I watched, the surroundings suddenly became quiet. Zhang Lingzi followed everyone's gaze and saw at the entrance of the show. An old man with gray hair, leaning on a silver cane, had just gotten out of a black business car. He was being helped by Yun Chan towards this direction. "Come over here." After a few seconds passed, The silence was covered by the sound of whispers. "It's Mr. Carlo, Yun Chan actually invited all of them here. This confidentiality work is really good. If we had known that Mr. Carlo was going to watch this show, there would have been a big earthquake in the fashion industry. I can actually see Mr. Carlo in person in my lifetime. I can show off for a whole year when I go back." Just when Zhang Lingzi took out her mobile phone and lowered her head to search for who Mr. Carlo was in everyone's opinion, she heard two slow footsteps stop by her ears. She looked up as if feeling something, and came face to face with the old man's face, which was a bit cloudy but still bright and sharp. Yun Chan smiled at Zhang Lingzi and told him his arrangement. "Lingzi, this is Mr. Carlo. He is sitting next to you and wants you to take care of him." This kind of care was not that she needed to help serve tea or water, it was simply that she felt that among all the people present, Zhang Lingzi was the only one who would not disturb Mr. Carlo's peace. End of this chapter. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 448. Zhang Lingzi suspected that she did not know Mr. Carlo, but Yun Chan found out the truth. Then he arranged someone next to her. She stood up with this suspicion in her mind. When the old man in front of her looked at her, she said hello in a neither humble nor condescending manner. "Hello, Mr. Carlo, I am Zhang Lingzi." Based on Yun Chan's understanding of Carlo, the old gentleman should have nodded coldly at this moment and then sat down directly. But the reality was somewhat beyond her expectation. She saw Mr. Carlo stretching out his right hand that would not be stretched out easily, and even said in a somewhat stiff accent, "Hello, Miss Zhang." Looking at a slender white hand and a pale wrinkled hand clasped together in front of him, Yun Chan's eyebrows jumped uncontrollably. She believed that everyone present should know who Mr. Carlo was. Leading figures in the international fashion industry, and unshakable myths in the fashion industry, all kinds of extremely glorious titles are placed on each other without any violation. But as famous as this old man is, he is also known for his eccentric temper. This man once directly flattered a princess in public, just because the princess accidentally said a wrong sentence and violated the old man's taboo. Later, he spoke directly on social platforms and bluntly listed the princess as a person he refused to deal with. I also squatted down to place a valuable brooch designed by myself on the chest of a girl who was crying guiltily after making a mistake during the catwalk, and held her hand to encourage her to stand up again. When the little girl was questioned by netizens for being unprofessional, she even used her own account to defend her. This person never cares about the opinions of others and does whatever he wants. He simply practices his own way to the extreme. No one can guess how this person behaves, and no one understands how he looks at people. This eccentric temper makes him widely admired by people in the fashion industry, but at the same time they can't help but stay away from him. Since there is no way to please, it is better to keep a careful distance. After all, those who rashly stepped forward to curry favor, and were subsequently blacklisted by this person, are now basically in the cold. There are so many lessons learned, so even if everyone saw Mr. Carlo alive, no one would dare to come forward and talk. Even the discussion was done cautiously, for fear of being overheard by many old men who were still hearing and seeing well. Until they saw Mr. Carlo shaking hands with Zhang Lingzi, a young star in the entertainment industry, not only Yun Chan who was standing aside was shocked, but also everyone else who saw the scene was shocked. For a while, even the sound of discussion disappeared. From the seat facing this side, there were several gasps in succession. He Jing was so shocked that she almost jumped up from her seat, her face full of disbelief. They had just discussed how Zhang Lingzi got such a good seat to watch the show, and He Jing even asserted that Zhang Lingzi was influenced by Shen Shuiwu. Just a few minutes later, Zhang Lingzi actually shook hands with Mr. Carlo. The person sitting next to He Jing couldn't help but turn his head and glance at He Jing. "Just ask if your face hurts?" The person who can shake hands with Mr. Carlo, even in this show where the big names in the fashion industry gather, probably has no more than 10 fingers. Is there any need to borrow Shenchui's light? Zhang Lingzi only noticed that when she shook hands with the old man in front of her, all the comments around her disappeared for a moment. It wasn't until I saw the surprise on Yun Chan's face that he couldn't hide it for a while that I finally realized that it was a great and incredible thing to be able to hold hands with Mr. Carlo. However, even if you know it, it is impossible to be frightened. Sister Yun asked me to help take care of you. If there is anything you need my help with, please just ask. The implication is that first of all, she is entrusted by others, and unless there is really anything that needs help, we can live in peace and not disturb each other at other times. Yun Chan understood Zhang Lingzi's subtext for the first time. This girl really doesn't know what the status of the person in front of her is in the fashion industry. Carlo, who was not a native speaker, could not help but understand it for a few seconds. Okay, he paused and then said, I will try not to disturb Miss Zhang while she enjoys the catwalk. Zhang Lingzi raised a smile on her lips and said, Old sir, please sit down. Yun Chan. She resisted the urge to hold her forehead and asked the old man why he treated Zhang Lingzi differently when they met for the first time. Mr. Carlo, Ling 11, I'll go and get started first. Because Mr. Carlo's status was really high and special, she took the time to go and pick him up in person. In fact, there are still many things waiting for her instructions and processing. Karo waved his hands nonchalantly after sitting down. He had also come from Yunchen at this time and knew how complicated it was to organize a big show. Moreover, he is getting stronger and stronger, so he doesn't need anyone to accompany him all the time. Zhang Lingzi nodded towards Yun Chan, saying that she would pay attention to the old man sitting next to her from time to time. Yun Chan. The old man wanted peace and quiet, and her whim arrangement seemed to have gone wrong. Even though no one dared to get close to Carlo, they couldn't help but look over at him. Zhang Lingzi was sitting next to him, so it was inevitable that he would be affected. Since the old man came and sat down, he had been looking at her almost continuously. She ignored it. No matter how you look at it, I am standing firm and unmoved. Karo also saw it in his eyes and couldn't help but nod his head. The reason why he shook hands with this Miss Zhang just now is actually very simple and definitely not as complicated as others think. Simply put, it means closing the eyes. As soon as he entered the show, among the hundreds of people crowded together, he immediately saw the figure sitting alone and peacefully, with a bit of leisure, but more of an awe-inspiring nobility emanating from his bones, cutting through the mediocrity. All living beings caught his eyes almost instantly. Throughout his life, he has liked the masterpieces of the Creator, but he also appreciates that a person can have a strong and unique aura. This Miss Zhang happened to have both. It's really hard not to look at him differently. Just after Yun Chan left, Shen Shuiyu, who stopped by the bathroom, happened to come back from wandering backstage. Why is the surrounding area so quiet? There is someone sitting next to you, cousin sister-in-law. Was it arranged by Sister Yun? This is, card. Zhang Lingzi saw Shen Shuiyu stiffen suddenly after seeing the person sitting on the other side of her clearly, and her originally smooth voice suddenly got stuck. She didn't know she thought this girl had seen a scourge. She kindly continued, Mr. Carlo. Ah, cough, cough, cough. Shen Shuiyu almost choked on her own saliva. Why is Mr. Carlo here? Even sitting with my cousin-in-law, she is probably hallucinating, right? End of chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 449. Chapter 449. Ask Zhang Lingzi for help. It wasn't until she heard Mr. Carlo greeting her sincerely, even though his tone was cold, that Shen Shuiyu was sure that it was not her imagination. The man in front of me is really Mr. Carlo, who is rumored to be extremely famous and temperamental. Now he is actually talking to a little guy like her in such a condescending manner. After reacting, she was flattered and quickly bowed to show respect. Hello, Mr. Carlo, I am Shen Shui, the founder of Shanyu's Haiheng. I am very happy to watch the show with you this time. You are my favorite, one of the most respected people. God, I'm so excited. I hope you understand. Karo listened quietly and showed a faint smile. I have seen Shanyu's Haiheng's clothes, they are very good. Had it not been in public, Shen Shui felt that she would be able to jump now. She was actually praised by Mr. Carlo, which was one of her lifelong wishes. Immediately afterwards, the other party asked, but, is it just one of them? Well, yes, because my cousin is also one of the people I admire the most. Hearing this, Zhang Lingzi glanced at Shen Shui helplessly. Mr. Carlo was just asking casually. This girl was quite honest. Ha ha ha, it seems that your cousin is also a very powerful person. Karo didn't expect that the girl would answer honestly, so she smiled and praised herself in disguise. Yes, you and my cousin are great in different fields, and I admire them both. Others were too far away to hear what Shen Shui and Mr. Carlo said, but anyone could see that they were having a great time talking. He Jing clenched the phone in her hand and almost broke her back molars watching this scene. Shen Shui, because of her familiarity with Yun Chan, must have known that Mr. Carlo would come and where to watch the show. Otherwise, how could these seats be so close to each other by chance? Moreover, Zhang Lingzi is obviously just a small star in the entertainment industry. She doesn't even have a popular TV series and is not even considered a second-tier star in the industry. How did she get to join Yun Chan and then get in touch with Mr. Carlo? Unfortunately, her head hurt from thinking about it, and she still couldn't figure out the connection. Unlike the people at the show who struggled to restrain their excitement after seeing Mr. Carlo and who were eagerly looking forward to the next show, the atmosphere backstage at the show was a bit solemn at this moment. Yun Chan clicked the unreachable mobile phone on the dressing table. I think Hao Mei did it on purpose. If you marry someone, you may have lost your brain too. If this show didn't use traditional elements, it was specially chosen to be held in China, so she wouldn't get the chance to win the finale. I kindly gave her this opportunity, but she actually dared to let me go. Yun Ping read the message she just received on her phone, then looked at her sister's cold face. She hesitated and handed the phone over. I'm afraid her mother-in-law had an idea for this matter. The mother-in-law and daughter-in-law had just auctioned off an international cruise ship. Will appear. Yun Chan took the phone, glanced at the photo above, and curled his lips mockingly. She is indeed the famous Mrs. Han. How long has it been since Hao Mei married into their Han family? She is now immersed in the role of a rich family's daughter-in-law. I don't even plan to have my own career. How about it, have you found a replacement model? Not yet. The person in charge of selecting all the models for this show stood aside and shook his head with a grimace. The main reason is that Hao Mei had promised well before. I didn't expect her to do this at all. It's the most important final appearance. Among domestic models, she has the most majestic appearance and the strongest aura. I really can't find anyone who can compare with Hao Mei in a short period of time. Han Rui is here to cause trouble for me because of the previous grudges. There is no one in the world more petty than her. Yun Chan dropped his knuckles on the table and knocked twice. There are still 2 hours. The people standing around were shocked when they heard the sound. The catwalk is about to start, and they are missing a finale model. They have 2 hours to find a model who can be the finale. This time, I have to say, is really too tight. In the silence, Yun Ping spoke silently. If you really can't find anyone at this time, there are only 2 ways. Pick one of the existing models to be the finale, and also, the people who came to watch the show today, there are also several well-known models inside, and you can ask one of them to help. Yun Chan couldn't help but think about the possibility of this suggestion. There is really little hope for other methods. Han Rui really gave her a big problem this time. Thinking about standing up, he walked to the finale piece of clothing not far across the way and stood in front of it. Do you think, except Hao Mei, who else among the models here can hold up this dress? Yunping's eyes also fell on the set of clothes designed and sewn by his sister. The foothills of the clouds are winding and vast like smoke. In this environment of endless yellow sand, this dress is like the incarnation of the desert, which is shocking to the soul. As a designer, Yun Chan's efforts are self-evident. However, no matter how good the clothes are, they still need someone to display them in order to reflect their most breathtaking beauty. Who among the models present can hold up? Also, this dress is also very strict on the model's figure. She cannot be fat, but she cannot be too thin either. It should not only be beautiful when worn, but also give people a sense of strength. Originally, Hao Mei barely met these requirements, but now, Yun Chan is really unwilling to compromise. No matter how anxious the several principals backstage were, the show still started on time in the face of the heavyweight spectators who had come from afar and were already seated around the catwalk. Zhang Lingzi and the other seats are gradually filling up, but probably thanks to Mr. Carlo, who likes peace and quiet, their area is the quietest in the entire show. After Shen Shuiao saw the opening model appear on the stage to the music, she temporarily forgot about the heavyweight guests sitting around her. Her eyes were fixed on the models on the stage, and she took out her mobile phone to take photos from time to time. Comparing Yun Chan's creation with his own hands, her Shanyu's Haiheng is still just a child. There is a lot to learn from this show. As each piece of clothing was displayed by the model, the sound of voices in other areas gradually disappeared, and the sound of shutters was added one after another, and the flashes became even more intense. Yun Chan was watching the performance of the models in front of the big screen backstage. He lowered his head and glanced at his watch. With satisfaction and a bit of anxiety, he reminded, there is still 1 hour. The person in charge holding the mobile phone beside him couldn't help but wipe the sweat from his face. Hao Mei was already scolded in his heart. Wait a minute, the face of Mr. Carlo, who was watching the show seriously, flashed across the screen in front of him. However, the person in charge's eyes were not on the old man at all, but on the person sitting next to him. Then it lit up, who is that girl? Yun Chan was shocked by his suddenly rising voice and subconsciously covered his ears. He turned around and saw the expression on the face of his person in charge, as if he saw a savior. Which one do you mean? The one wearing a yellow shawl and sitting next to Mr. Carlo must be a model too. Sister Yun, do you recognize this girl? I know her, but she's not a model, she's an actor. Actor? Why is he an actor? Ignoring the person in charge's annoyance, Yun Chan looked at Zhang Lingzi for a moment when the camera panned over the VIP table again. When Yunping hurriedly walked behind her, he called out to stop her, Ping Ping, I have an idea. There is a 10-minute break at halftime. Zhang Lingzi took 3 bottles of water from the small cart that was pushed aside, handed one to Shen Shuiao, and when she turned to Mr. Carlo, she opened it for him. I heard Shen Shuiao's voice behind me, Sister Yun, why are you here? Zhang Lingzi also heard some hurried footsteps, handed the water to the old man and looked back. I'm here to find Ling 11, Yun Chan said, walked up to Zhang Lingzi, stood still, bent his knees and approached, and whispered, Ling 11, I want to ask you for a favor. End of this chapter. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 450. Chapter 450 I want to hold up the skirt of Her Majesty the Queen. Zhang Lingzi followed Yun Chan into the busy backstage. He met an extremely earnest and fiery look. Although the height is a bit lacking, the head-to-body ratio is really amazing, it will definitely work. Zhang Lingzi's eyes suddenly turned cold. She actually questioned her height? The person in charge felt a chill in his back for no reason. When he saw someone approaching, he subconsciously moved out of the way and did not dare to say anything else. He always felt that talking too much would not end well. Yun Chan led Zhang Lingzi to the final piece of clothing. I'm not afraid of making fun of you. The original model for the finale let me go. I had some grudges with her mother-in-law before, but I didn't expect that this person would find a chance to take revenge. I have been looking for a substitute for the past hour, but this dress. She paused, it is the one that I have spent the most effort on. I am not willing to make do with it, but I still hope that someone can display it perfectly. Zhang Lingzi's eyes lit up when she looked at the clothes that would be worn on the plastic model. It is indeed a very beautiful and elegant dress. I can understand your expectations, however, I have never been a model, and I don't know how to walk on stage. Actually, if she was really allowed to leave, she could force it out, but why should she force herself? Yun Chan took a deep breath and said, you can take a few steps and I'll take a look. Zhang Lingzi raised her eyebrows. Just walk normally. Zhang Lingzi looked at the people who had gathered around him and walked a few steps. Yun Chan clasped his hands together and said, okay, when you get to the stage, just leave like this. Sure. I am very sure. Shen Shui waited for a while before her cousin-in-law came back, so she took out her mobile phone and sent a message. After a while, I received a reply, I will be back after a show. This message made her rub her eyes and read it again. What's the situation? Why do you suddenly have to go to a catwalk? Isn't my cousin an actress? How come she has transformed into a model for Sister Yun's big show? What kind of development is this, and why can't she understand it? However, Shen Shui held back a series of questions that popped up in her mind at this moment and did not ask any more questions. Cousin-in-law can't just lie to her with this statement. The catwalk should be true. As for the reason, it's not too late to ask when people come back. It would be bad if it disturbs my cousin's preparations in the background. However, it's not a good idea to disturb my cousin-in-law, because she is thinking of someone else. Cousin, do you want to watch the live broadcast of my cousin-in-law's catwalk show? Shen Yunqing couldn't help but jump at the end of his eyes when he saw this news. He raised his hand to signal Jing Huai, who was about to speak, to shut up. What catwalk? This time I was invited to watch the big show held in Liangchuan. My cousin-in-law just told me that she was also going to do a show, and I immediately thought of you. So, do you think my cousin is considerate? Well, not bad. Shen Shui was about to reply, I'll broadcast it live to you later, when she thought of another thing and rolled her eyes. However, I want to receive a reward. What reward? If he's in the painting blue waves and everything I gave you after copying it, and let me enjoy it for a few days. After the message was sent, Shen Shui waited for 2 minutes for a reply. Yes, but only borrowing and not sending, maximum 3 days. Look, you're in trouble. I won't break it. It only takes 3 days to pay back. If I don't pay back then, you can still come to me to get it back, Shen Shui muttered in a low voice, and typed out 2 words with excitement. Word. Make a deal. So the two of them, one at the scene and the other across the screen, waited and waited. Looking at the models walking past the platform in front of them to the music, but still not seeing the cousin who was about to walk the catwalk, Shen Shui couldn't help but make a bold guess in her mind, could it be Miss Shen? It was Mr. Carlo who interrupted her, mumbling. Shen Shui quickly turned her head and looked over. Mr. Carlo, what can I do for you? Do you know, Miss Zhang, where you went? Shen Shui was secretly shocked. She didn't expect that this old man paid so much attention to his cousin-in-law and asked her specifically. You'll see her on stage later. Oh, Carlo's almost completely white eyebrows trembled. Is Miss Zhang still a model who is going to walk on the catwalk? Probably so. Originally, She thought that her cousin-in-law was just an actress, but now, even she is not sure. I am looking forward. Me too. The conversation between the old man and the young man ended here, and the people sitting behind them also silently lowered their perked ears. Did Yoon Chan also use new models this time? How bold! As the show came to an end, the music on the show suddenly changed. The ancient music played by the piano and flute ensemble, with the accompaniment of the ancient sun sound, immediately creates a desolate scene in the desert. Combined with the surrounding environment, everyone at the scene was immediately drawn into this atmosphere. Backstage exit. Yoon Chan put the back of the pen in his hand and made a cheering gesture towards Zhang Lingzi, who turned to look at her. Lingzi, you can do it. Zhang Lingzi actually just wanted to ask her if she could start walking. She would encourage herself, smile, lift her feet, and take steps. Today's scene, compared to the enthronement ceremony in my previous life, is just a little more serious than a child's playhouse. Speaking of nervousness and stage fright, these two words should not be in her dictionary at all. When that figure appeared against the clear sky and the scorching sun, dressed in light-colored attire, slowly walking towards the crowd with his own steps, many hands holding cameras or mobile phones forgot to take pictures. It doesn't matter if you don't follow the rhythm of the music. The ancient music played by the piano and flute ensemble has unknowingly transformed into taking the initiative to match Zhang Lingzi's pace at this moment. Every step he takes seems to be stepping on the hearts of everyone. As the figure approached step by step, his heartbeat accelerated uncontrollably. Surprise, nervousness, awe, all kinds of emotions were raging together in an instant, and he couldn't even speak when he opened his mouth. Shen Shui almost forgot that she had to live broadcast to her cousin. She raised her head and stared blankly at the scornful figure walking in front of her. It wasn't until the person walked away that she couldn't help but murmur, "Why do I feel like my cousin is about to ascend the throne?" Shen Yunqing, who was watching the video of His Majesty passing by on his mobile phone. He wanted to say, "You know the truth? This person has actually been on it." He could also see that His Majesty's aura has been reduced now. If he showed the same aura as when he ascended the throne, all the people present would have to kneel down. Shen Yunqing didn't see it himself, but Jing Huai, who was silenced in front of him, could clearly see it. Mr. Shen in front of me looked at his mobile phone with reverence like a god, but also with deep thoughts that were about to burst. The figure disappears and the ancient songs are scattered. The show slowly recovered from the shock of silence. Uncontrollable chatter began. "I'll go, I just watched the finale and forgot to take pictures." "Me too, and I wanted to ask you if you have any photos." "Isn't the final model Hao Mei, why was it changed?" "I want to say that the change was good. I think the model this time is more powerful than Hao Mei. When she walked in front of me just now, I subconsciously held my breath. To be honest, I really wanted to rush over and lift the skirt of Her Majesty the Queen. The clothes and the person are just amazing. He is indeed worthy of being called Yoon Chan. Every time he makes a move, he can instantly become a god. Does anyone know the finale model? Yoon Chan is looking for that person. This typhoon is simply a strong one." Backstage, as soon as Zhang Lingzi stood still, Yoon Chan took his hand. "Ling 11, change your career." Zhang Lingzi. When all the models and Yoon Chan appeared again, Yoon Chan took Zhang Lingzi's hand with a smile on his face and officially called the curtain. Thunderous applause followed and showed no sign of calming down for a while, indicating that everyone was extremely satisfied with this show. Shen Shui had just turned off the video with her cousin, and turned around to see Mr. Carlo standing up next to him on crutches. "Mr. Carlo, where are you going?" "Go backstage, I want to meet that Miss Zhang." He was so eager that he didn't even want to wait for someone to come out. End of this chapter.